All right, I think in the interest of time, I will go ahead and get started. And then as people log on, we can get them caught up. I know there's a few more people that were planning to join us. So first of all, I'm just going to briefly introduce our two guest speakers we have joining with us today. And then I'll go through kind of what the Wyoming Office of Tourism is doing right now in relationship to group travel in the motor coach industry. And then I'll turn it over to our speakers. One of the things that they've asked with this webinar is a little bit different than some of our past, but we really want this to be dialogue driven. You guys are out in the industry. You guys are the ones out there working with the motor coaches, trying to get the motor coaches to come in and visit you. So I really encourage you guys, ask questions. Like, we really have two great experts in this field that are joining us. And this is really a great opportunity to sit down and just ask the operators and receptives about different questions you might have. So first of all, I want to introduce Jeremy Palmer. Jeremy is the COO of Tauk Tours, which is one of the leading tour companies that's through our state and also around the world. So we're very excited to have him. He has been there for 14 years, and I'll let him talk more about his experience with that. We also have Jen Jennings, who I know many of you guys know. She's the Director of Sales at Little America. And she does a lot of work with the groups that are coming into our state from the South. So she's a great resource as far as people that are feet on the ground, working directly with the group tours when they get there. So thank you guys both for joining us today and to sharing your insights. I just want to start by sharing a couple of updates from the Wyoming Office of Tourism. The first thing I want to do is share with you guys a group travel page. We have just kind of soft launched this. So this is a brand new page that will be a great resource for a couple of reasons for groups that are planning on coming to Wyoming or looking for information for coming to Wyoming. The first thing, obviously, is who is their contact person, somebody they can reach out to that can get you connected with the people out in the out with our partners. The other thing that we're doing, which is new this year, and I'm super excited about this, is the That's Way Byway box. So what we're doing is, as we're meeting with groups and the groups we know that are coming, we're encouraging them to come onto our website a couple of weeks before they head out on their tour. So the tour guide will come on here, and we're asking to just collect some information. The name of the tour company, with our itinerary, like where are they going, what are they visiting, and how many people they have with them. We're asking for overnight locations, dining locations, and attractions. So the main reason we're doing this is just so we start to collect a great database of who are our tour operators in the state of Wyoming. And kind of just so we can track what are the routes, where are they going, are there places that are hitting that we don't know. It's also a great marketing tour that says, hey, we have some tour groups going to this place. They may not know that they're within a quick drive of this other great attraction. So what we will do is, after we get this information, we are going to send the tour operator, or not the tour operator, sorry, the tour guide, a byway box. And this box is going to have some stuff for their participants on their tours. It's going to have a stuffed jackalope with a That's Why branded bandana that the tour guide can either keep for themselves or he can use it as a door prize. We get requested sometimes for promotional items to hand out. They'll also get a wildlife guide and a wildflower guide to help them as they go through the state, because we definitely have a lot of unique wildflowers and a lot of unique wildlife that are not seen everywhere else. And they're also going to get some swag to hand out to their participants. So everybody will get a That's Why sunscreen and lip balm branded thing for each of their participants on the trip. So we're really excited about just the potential of what we can do, just getting this data, just getting to know our companies a little bit better, and getting to understand the routes a little better too. A couple other things we're going to feature on this page. We do have a video that we created for motor coaches, and the video contains 8 locations on each of our routes that are motor coach friendly. So this is a great marketing tool as well to share with motor coaches that are looking for new things, new ideas, as they come to Wyoming, and they can see how they connect to the route. We'll also have a featured itinerary, and that itinerary will be whatever the current FAM trip we just did was. So we will have the featured itinerary from the FAM trip we did in the fall that I'll address here in a minute. Another great thing we're doing, I'm gonna actually stop the share here. Another great thing that we're doing this year is we're working with a company to create a group travel planner. So this is going to be kind of a separate magazine. It'll be print and digital. We have 6 partners that are involved in this project, and they each created a 3-day, 2-night itinerary for their area. And then as the state, we created 2 additional itineraries that cover multiple destinations in those 3 days and 2 nights. So it's 8 itineraries included, plus the 1 feature itinerary we'll have on our website. Will actually give a great overview of different places around the state that motor coaches can go and that are motor coach friendly. It'll be out in February, and we will actually have that live on our website as well. So once group tour operators come to the website, they can click and they're going to have access to 9 different itineraries around the state of Wyoming. We are sponsoring 4 different trade shows. Our sponsor is at 4 different trade shows. We just completed the NTA Treks, which was a great attendance. We will be sponsoring the upcoming ABA Marketplace next month in Grapevine, Texas. We are sponsors at NTA Contact, which is a tour operator retreat in March in Anchorage, Alaska. And we will be sponsors with Select Traveler, which will be in Cheyenne this year. In the fall, we completed our first FAM trip in a while. So we brought some qualified tour operators out, and we showcased Western Wyoming. We really highlighted Kemmer, Pinedale, Dubois, Lander, and Rock Springs. We had 3 tour operators with us. We intentionally kept us small, and all 3 of them have actually added itineraries to include those markets in 2022 and 2023. So super successful with that. We will be doing another FAM trip this year. It's going to highlight the migration trails west, so Torrington up to Casper, and then it's going to highlight the railroads back from Rollins back to Cheyenne. So we're really excited about that. One of the things we continue to get asked about in Wyoming is what are some unique places and one-of-a-kind experiences? What are things that you can only do in Wyoming? Which makes it really easy for me to talk about because we have great attractions, great destinations, and great things that really you can only experience in Wyoming. And they're spread throughout the entire state. So it's been really fun to work with tour operators to kind of have them rethink some of their routes and start considering new routes. So now that I've given you all of this oversight, if you guys have any questions on this at any time, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeremy. And I encourage you guys to use either the chat function, and we're also a small enough group that if you guys want to put your videos on and just ask questions as he goes through his presentation, definitely both him and Jen are open to that, and that's kind of what they would prefer. So I will turn it over.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody, and nice to see everyone. And I just want to reiterate what Amy said. Amy and I had chatted a little bit before this call, but I don't know each one of the names that I see on my screen, and most importantly, I want this to be beneficial to you all, right? And if you know me, unfortunately, I can speak a lot about a lot of different things, and I don't want to waste your time. So interrupt. So I've got a few things to start, if that's okay, Amy and Jen. It'll take me maybe just a few minutes, and then I'll kind of lay them out as an outline, and then you guys drive me in terms of where you want to spend time, where you don't want to spend time, right? So again, Jeremy Palmer, I work with Talc I'm in Connecticut. That's Wilton Woods, which is where our corporate headquarters are. Been at the company 14 years, and I've been out to your state many, many times. And I don't recognize names, but if any of you have done business with us and have helped our guests, I really just want to say thank you for all you do for them. So in terms of what I was thinking, maybe we could start with 3 basic foundations, kind of how do you get to us, right? In terms of could we do business together? What to expect if we do business together? And then what would success look like if we show up both for you and for us, right? Because at the end of the day, this doesn't work if it's not working for both parties. That's how we view this. So I'll just kind of outline each of those and I'll pause. And again, redirect me, ask questions. I want this to be helpful. So in terms of how to get to us, and again, these are just headlines, right? Most of what we do in Wyoming is in that sort of northern corridor, right? We start in Jackson. We have 4 or 5 different tours that we do in your state. I'm sorry, but they all kind of start in Jackson. They do Yellowstone, and then going through Bighorn, Sheridan, Buffalo, ending up in Rapid City is generally the path that most of these take, right? They tend to be 7 to 12-day itineraries. And I guess as a first step, if there's any opportunity for us to visit with you along that path, that's the best way for it to work, right? Generally speaking, we don't create new tours to go to a specific destination. It has to be an amalgamation of all these different interesting things that last over 7 to 12 days. And there are many, many ways to find a fit. It doesn't have to be this big headline grab or this national park. There are many, many things that are important to that choreography. Each of our tours has about 180 to 200 individual components in them. So I'd be happy to come back to that. But generally, you have to be in the geographic area and then you find a fit. In terms of what to expect, when the motor coach pulls up, you're looking at anywhere from 20 to 50 individuals, along with a guide and along with a driver. So if you're a restaurant, if you're a hotel, whatever however you want to size it, it's going to be somewhere between 20 to 50 individuals. And we are series based. So from generally May through September around the world, we hope to show up each and every week, sometimes multiple times a week, with that group of people coming in and out, right? So as you start to think about, do you want us? Could you handle us? Is it good for your business? Think about series-based and repetition. To any successful motor coach operator, and I think personally, anyone that's going to do your business well, repetition is a key to success. You want to know that we're going to show up on a given day at a given time, so you can plan your service around it, so you can make money off of it. But we're not going to show up one day and then not next week. That kind of infrequent thing doesn't work for us. So it's a big mouthful to chew off, but hopefully it's a good one, as we keep coming back and forth. And in terms of what is success for us, obviously the logistics have to be organized, no doubt about that. We can talk, in more detail. But the real key thing is, even though we're a motor coach, each person on the coach expects to be treated like an individual, right? So if you're running an F&B operation, you have to be ready for 40 people to come off the bus, turn around in 2 hours, which is no small feat, particularly in COVID times. But as we go through that, each individual, at least with Talc, they expect to sit down, primarily have an a la carte experience, to order off a menu, even if it's a limited menu, and to be treated like an individual, not just a herd of people coming in and out. The other big thing for success with us is a relationship. We want to have a relationship with you that's long-term. That's when you're the happiest, our guests are happiest, we're the happiest. Feedback is really big to us. We expect you'll get to know the person at Talc who would be talking with you. So as you plan for the coming year, you know who you're talking to. As the unexpected happens, which we all know it does, there's someone to pick up the phone and talk to. If you're not ready for that type of relationship, if you're not ready for us trying to basically serve a higher purpose together with our guests, if you're not open to feedback, if we're not open to feedback, it's going to be tough to find success. So again, Amy, Jen, I'm just going to pause there because there's so many different directions I could go to, but sort of how to get to us, what to expect, success, happy to go wherever people want, or another place if that's more interesting.
Why don't we swing it over to Jen and kind of have her talk about a little bit about when they get there, and then we can just open it up free for all for questions.
Great, thank you. Yes, well, I appreciate that kind of introduction. As far as Little America goes, and kind of my background in history, I've been with Little America about 4 years, but I have previously been in the industry works about 12 years. So I have been with both like select service and limited service properties, as well as Little America, which is more of like a full service property. So that is something I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit too. I know sometimes you don't always have to be a full service property to take on group tours and group travel. So I think that's something to kind of point out. If we do have some industry partners out there that might not have that full service experience, there are still several different itineraries, different groups, different companies that you could work with that are looking just to come to stay the night rather than having that full service experience. As far as Little America goes, we do offer that more full service experience when we have a motor coach come in. We usually have a plan. We usually have a welcome letter all ready for them. On the back, we have some fun things to do in the area. I know some of our tour groups are looking to go downtown. They might have a dine around that night. A lot of them do end up wanting porterage when they get here. So that is something to be aware of. If certain tour groups, especially, I would say, on like the domestic side, kind of knowing your demographics of the motor coach that are coming in and who those people might be, if they might need someone to help with their luggage, having that built into your package, or at least knowing what your general pricing is as far as porterage goes when that group arrives at the property. Also, we do have a specific tour menu that we offer our tour groups at Little America. And so we have a full service banquet staff. So that is something that we're able to offer. We do also have the restaurant. So a lot of groups will dine on their own in the restaurant, but if a group does want to have a full dining experience, we can do a catered tour group kind of experience at the property. One other thing is breakfast vouchers, or if you do have breakfast included in your rate, just making sure that the tour is very aware of that. They need to know where they're going to go in the morning to kind of help with that process. But I guess that's kind of where we're at and what we offer as far as arrival for tour groups as a full service property, and kind of what we have to offer. I know we do also work closely. We understand that sometimes people do want to get away from the property. So I know we work closely with our CVB with Visit Cheyenne, and they can give us some other options if folks do want to go dine off site. And we just make sure that our team's aware of that too. They're not going to be here for dinner. They're going to be going off site for dinner. But working with some other industry partners to have options like that can definitely be a big plus.
Great, thanks, Jen. All right, you guys have questions? If not, I have a few I can start throwing out, but I know a lot of you guys have questions because you email me them a lot. I'll go ahead and start with this one that came in. Jeremy, you talked about you guys particularly stay up in the north area. Jen, you guys are getting a lot of the traffic that's coming primarily Denver up through to the Black Hills and over. So you cross through a lot of little destinations in those areas. What are some things that these smaller destinations that have kind of unique experiences, what can they do to stand out? What can they do to kind of attract that motor coach to detour off a little bit to come see the dinosaur tracks or some of those unique things?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Jen?
Oh no, please, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think, well, first thing, to make this as real as possible, Amy, if it's okay, I'd like you to I'd like to leave you with the name of our product manager, Alicia, who's responsible for Wyoming, right? So I'd like to give everybody a name so that if any of this does fit, they can actually email her, and she's the person responsible for designing and running our trips in Wyoming. So that's a real lead, right? And I think probably the best way to do it, in my opinion, is, again, right, you all know this, we're all in the hospitality industry. At the end of the day, we're trying to do many things, but one of the things we're trying to do is create an experience that has a narrative, right, that has some sort of emotional angle. And that, like any person on vacation, is meeting many different needs, right? And so what I would suggest you do is, if you look at someone like Talc, right, pick up one of our brochures or go online and just see where the tour goes, right? Not just for the geography, but understand, okay, I kind of see the narrative that they're spinning, right? And okay, here's this classic landmark, here's sort of being outdoors, and then kind of think to yourself, how would I fit in, right? Because our tours are composed of so many different things, and usually, or not usually, but a lot of times, the moments that our guests rave about the most are when they make the most authentic connections to an individual who they feel is representative of that region. Does not have to be a big name, does not have to be a big ticket item, does not have to be a national monument, right? It's sort of, I'm going through this area, and in my mind's eye, I've always thought X about Wyoming, whether it's the hospitality or the food or a storyteller or dinosaur tracks. Like, oh, I didn't even know that this was part of the history of this area, right? If you start thinking about sort of that narrative and how you could fit in, and that's from an emotional point of view, but also you can fit in from a logistical point of view, right? Which is, boy, they seem to be going a long way from point A to point B, and I'm right in the middle of it. And I could give these folks a cool break, whatever that is. It can be food, it can be sustenance, it can be just an excuse to get off and walk around. There are many, many ways to get in here. And I would always encourage people not that you're frightened, but don't underestimate what you can bring to the table. Because again, these folks are with us for 7 to 12 days. They're 60 to 80-year-old Americans. And if you have something that you think would fit with that and isn't a jarring sort of break in terms of narrative or geography or service, there's absolutely an opportunity to get in there.
That would be my question. What is the demographic of your visitors?
Sure. So for me, they tend to be, excuse me, for talc, they tend to be Americans between the age of 55 to 80. Really, they're empty nesters. So they have sent their kids off to wherever their kids are going off to. And now it's their time to basically feel vital, to feel alive. And travel is a huge part of that. They tend to be curious. They tend to be easygoing people. They have high standards and they tend to be well-to-do, but they're pretty down-to-earth people. And then we also have a family product line, which are basically those people as grandparents with their sons and daughters, with their grandkids, aunts, uncles, who will travel together on our family program. Mm-hmm. But they're generally, I think most folks would say, they're a pretty easy, high standards, but a pretty easy group, excuse me, if you're doing it right.
And Jackie, I would say that with the other operators I meet with, that's pretty much the standard age is your empty nesters, your 55 to 80 is who, and I'm sure Jen can speak a little bit to who they see get off those buses as well. But they're people that really like everything to be taken care of for them, that they just have to get on the bus and things will they'll drop them off, they have their lodging, everything's ready to go. And Jen, you might be able to answer this next question, and Jeremy as well, but when groups are looking for lodging, when they're like looking at your town and they're looking to see what's available for lodging, what are some of the requirements they're looking for lodging, as far as what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, I guess, I can kind of talk about some of the different groups we have. I would say we have such a wide range of different types of groups that come in. I will say a lot of times in Wyoming, seasonality can play a little bit of a factor in the time of year that folks are traveling. And as far as transportation, being able to get across the state, I know that's something I would say probably 95% of the groups that we get come in May through October. So that's kind of something just to kind of take into account or into consideration. However, we do have a tour group series. They're kind of what Jeremy was talking about, same demographics as a lot of their groups. They're out of Nebraska, and they're a little bit lower rated group. They're not as all inclusive, but they do want to travel. They come in February. They have a few groups in February. They even have some in November that are traveling through the state. And so we're getting those stay throughs in some need months, which is kind of great. And we're willing to be a little bit more competitive as far as rate goes in those off months. I know sometimes during peak months, rates might be a little bit higher, just as we know Wyoming is a little bit seasonal. In the summer months, when they can get up to Yellowstone or travel across the state, go up to the Black Hills, wherever it might be, it's a little bit easier to get across the state. So I think those are certain things to take into consideration. And then also operationally, making sure your front desk is on board. You do have folks that can handle porterage if need be. Also having team members that might even be able to welcome the bus when they get there, the motor coach when they get there, just being like a welcoming, familiar face. I know even some sales managers call themselves like porterage experts. They're there, they're ready to welcome the motor coach when they get there, take them to the bags to their rooms, and then kind of show them where the restaurant might be, where different amenities might be at the hotel. So I think kind of having a team that's really ready and prepared for what those folks are looking for, that kind of all-inclusive or experience where they don't have to think too much. It's easy. Just making it as easy as possible is, I think, is a good thing to be ready for as a product.
Yeah, just building on that, and Amy, you've got to give me the high sign here, because this is a subject I could go on and on about, okay, right, in terms of this. But yeah, I think that, Jen, your last point is an excellent one, right, which is, again, for us, but also if you've heard of Destination America, Colette, Trafalgar, some other people that you probably see around, right? I think the worst mistake, so there's a whole logistical side, which I'll stay away from for a minute, which is all these people are going to be showing up every Wednesday. Are you ready? When a provider dismisses a bus group, okay, oh, they don't require the same treatment as one of my best FITs. Oh, it's a bus group, they're just coming and going. Like, I'm not too worried about them. I'm just going to give them chicken or beef. Or forgive me if my examples, I'm just trying to use these as hypotheticals, right? That's the killer. That's the killer, right? So first of all, you have to have someone on property, whether it's the owner or the manager, who really understands, as you were saying, Jen, these people are coming. This is what they expect from the moment they check in to the moment they leave, across housekeeping, across F&B, across whatever it is. When they have that sort of scoping done and they police it to make sure that it's done at an aggregate level, that's when you'll win. And I promise you, where they stayed the night before and where they stay the night after you, or whatever it is, they are doing that. So if you don't do it, it sticks out like a sore thumb, getting over a cold, sore thumb, and it doesn't necessarily work. But then also, when they are there, you have to treat each person as an important guest, right? So our folks tend to be well-to-do. So these are folks who I guarantee you have stayed in the best of the best around the world. And one thing that they do not accept, they used to, but they don't anymore, is an excuse. Oh, we're rural, therefore we couldn't do this. Or, oh, we're remote, therefore we can't do that. These folks have stayed on savannas in Africa, in the Arctic Circle. And yes, they understand that things will be different than, if you're staying in the middle of an LA hotel, but they don't really have high tolerance for that. So if they come into the dining room, when they're checking in, they don't want to wait in line for 30 minutes. They expect to just have, and we work with you on all this stuff, right? But they just expect to get their keys from their TD and they check in. When they go to dinner, they don't want to be like, oh, you're with the bus, you're in the back room, at the table at 4:30 that nobody else wants. No, that type of thing won't fly. So I could go into a lot of details about this, but I think my main thing is you have to have someone who understands the needs of the group and that it is seamless front to back from moment of arrival to departure. But then when they're on property, each of your staff members need to treat that person like an individual who is an FIT, who is paying for your highest rated room, quite frankly. They each want that individual experience. And if you get that right, you'll have long-term success. If you stray from that, you start to get into dangerous water. And really, that's about value. That's not about price, right? That can happen at different price tiers. It's not so much about the physical plant as it is about the service, because again, the level is just so high globally now that people do not have tolerance for when things don't work.
Great, thanks. Can we shift kind of with that same thought? A lot of the people that have joined us are coming from attractions, destinations, museums, or that's kind of their primary thing in their area. Can you talk a little bit about when they show up at an attraction? What are they looking for? How much time are they looking to spend? Do they need private guides? Like how do we welcome a group to one of our museums?
Sure, should I go? Yeah, I'll go first, Jen. So I think, some of that depends on, you know, where you are in the choreography, to your question about time. But I would say generally, you know, most visits are a couple hours or less because people need downtime in the day. You have time to get there or not, right? So it's probably a little bit on an hour or abbreviated side. I think that when they show up, the group expects to be split up if they're touring something, right? So if it's 20 or 30 or 40 that show up, we then break those people into groups of 10 to experience the attraction. So you need to be ready to break it up. And then from there, I feel like private or behind the scenes is the way to go, right? So whether it's a museum or an attraction, everybody who travels with us, they want to feel like they're getting something more than they would if they had just driven up in their car or their minivan or gotten out themselves. So again, it's being ready to handle the group. It's being ready to treat them like an individual, in this case, breaking them into smaller groups. And then in the actual experience, whether it's what they see or who talks to them, they should feel like they had a behind the scenes experience if it's a museum or an attraction or a destination. They should always feel special. If you're making them feel special, you're winning.
So I have a question. Is food and drinks and snacks, is that always an enticement that kind of gets groups to choose an attraction or destination over another destination?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I think our people love to eat. You know, they call it the Talc 15. I'm sure it's the Globus, but you know, everybody has that, right? They love to eat. So yes, it's always an enticement. But what I will say is it has to be an informed enticement. So in other words, if they just finished a massive lunch and you're trying to entice them 30 minutes later with barbecue or something like that, that's not going to fit, right? You need to kind of think about sort of that fit. And then the other thing I would say is quality way over quantity, right? So in other words, if there's some little regional thing that you may be known for, or the area is known for, like Wyoming's best, you fill in the blanks, the novelty may be as important as the actual sort of what it is. So yes, it's an enticement, but it has to be an informed, intelligent enticement, but don't feel like everything has to be 5-course, best of the best. No, not at all. It just has to capture the imagination and then be well executed.
Thanks.
Jeremy, can I ask a question relative to museums? Yeah, so what if our museum is large enough such that an hour really doesn't make sense? Does it ever make sense to maybe do a 2-hour tour, break for lunch, resume a 2-hour tour as a morning tour, lunch tour, then leave the museum? Does that ever make sense?
Yeah, and I'll be very direct on that. And again, all of this is in the intent of being helpful, right? And it's hard to know without the specifics, but for our guests, they're spending 7 days with us, okay? Generally speaking, on a Tauk trip, they are spending between $750 to $1,000 per person per day, okay? So if they just spent 4 to 6 hours with you, if you think of that as a percentage of their 7-day trip, as a percentage of their time, as a percentage of their spend, it's got to be something really, really impactful, right? Because the 4 hours with you includes an hour there, an hour back, an hour. It's really a full day at the end of the day, right? Because people need downtime. So I always encourage folks, start small, okay? Because it's way better to do it quick and right and leave them wanting more than to over plan. I think you'll have more opportunities that way because also, and sorry, I don't mean to monopolize the conversation. We've been operating in your state for, I don't even know exactly, 60 years, 70, you know, way back. So we've already got a great itinerary that's really humming. So your 6 hours would have to displace something that's already there. And the more time you need, the harder it is, I think, for our product manager, Alicia, to make that change. So I don't mean to sound negative, but I'm trying to be honest.
Hey, Jeremy, I just want to follow up a little bit on because you brought up Alicia again.
Yeah.
So when our partners, a lot of these guys are new to the group tour industry, group travel. And so when they're reaching out, how is the best way for them to reach out to Alicia? Is it email? Is it phone calls? Is it newsletters? How often should they be
Email. So you should email. And again, I think there's nothing wrong in saying, well, for you all, you can say, hey, I listened to Jeremy. And I mean, I don't know if that'll help you or hurt you, but at least it'll get our attention, right? So you can say that. But if you reach out and just say, hey, this is what I am. I've looked at your tour and I am here, right? Because if you come in with an email and you're 500 miles off the course of an existing tour and you're not cognizant of that, that's not going to help, right? But if you're like, hey, I think I'm on the path and I have this, and maybe you don't have room for me now, maybe you will in the future, you know, et cetera, that's the way to do it. And I promise you, if there's something there, they will absolutely reach out. And the only other thing, sorry, just to leave you quickly with, is when we plan 18 months ahead. So she's designing the tour 18 months before we run it, right? So if you're looking to do this, start now, because we're talking 2023 probably before we'd show up with this. And so, you know, you have plenty of time to do the long sell and to get in there. So just reach out with an email. And again, try and have an insightful commentary of why you think you could add value and be helpful to Talc. And then, you know, hopefully there's a way that we could find a way to be helpful to you.
And did you want to add something to that, or?
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing from, I guess, more of an industry partner, it comes along with, I guess, making connections with your neighbors or maybe like your sister properties or something like that. I know we are utilizing our CBD or DMO, even Wyoming Office of Tourism, to be available for fam tours, to be a resource as far as just partnering with you guys, or with, you know, Visit Cheyenne, Jim and Andy and our team there. You know, they know that we are here for them. You know, we're hopefully one of the first people that they'll reach out to if they do need something. So, you know, as a destination, as maybe someone that might have a new product that you're trying to get out there, I think the biggest thing that I would say that you could do locally is just connecting with those people that are already selling your destination and just making them aware that you're there and you can be helpful to them. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that we try to do too, is just be available, be open, be a great resource and a great partner.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to pop up Alicia's address that Jeremy talked about really quick to everyone. And I do want to go back over, just kind of reiterate what Jen said. For a lot of you guys, the best way to start getting involved, I think, with the group travel is talk with your DMO. So if your DMO is currently going to the shows, if they're currently in contact with some of the motor coaches, that's the best place to start. If you are not, if your DMOs are not going, a lot of you guys I know are from smaller destinations. Make sure that we are aware at the Office of Tourism what product you have to offer. The state of Wyoming is huge. And I always think that I'm an expert in it until I find out there's a great little steak restaurant 45 minutes from Cheyenne that can accommodate a group that I never heard of before. So I think that it's important for you guys to kind of let us know too, like, hey, we're interested in starting this. Hey, you know, we've got the Wyoming Dinosaur Center in Thermopolis. How do we start attracting groups to come there? Kind of utilize us a little bit with the resources as well. Jen brought up a great point too. Partner with us on fam trips. Partner with us as we start building out. We don't do a ton of fam trips every year. We obviously can't cover the state every year, but like I just said, with the fam trip we took in the fall of this year, we kept it small just because of COVID. I had an operator that backed out at the last batch, so there only ended up being 3, but all 3 of them have added parts of that fam trip onto 2022 itineraries or 2023 with very little adjustments that they had to do. One of them is actually creating a whole new itinerary based on one of the destinations that we went to. Like that's the whole, like the crust of his whole itinerary is going to be one of these destinations that wasn't previously known. So there's great opportunities, and it's a small investment for you guys to partner with us on some of that. As you guys start building up group travel kind of stuff, just stay in contact with us. With our group travel page coming up, we're going to be able to track a little bit more where the routes are. Tauk, we kind of joke, we can set our watches by Tauk up in the north. Because as Jeremy said, they're always at this place at this time at this day. We see that a lot in the southeast with Globus, and some of those tour operators as well. And so as we're starting to track these routes, we're going to have some information too that we're able to pass out to you guys, and just say, hey, did you know that Making Memory Tours is actually coming through this region? How can we work and reach out? And some of those leads we should be able to share with you guys. So it's important for you guys to keep in contact with us as well, which most of you guys have, which is why I sent you the invites to be on this, this webinar today. So we have a few more minutes. Do anybody else have any questions that you want to add? This is your time.
I have a question. So mine is more on the financial aspect of things. Like when we would be, so I work at the Washakie Museum. We're a small museum, but it's a great attraction in Worland, Wyoming. And so when we're kind of building our tour pricing here, are there tools that maybe Alicia would give me when I'm creating that on what price range is, better for tour groups? Are there price ranges that will say, oh, well, that looks really too cheap. We don't want to stop here because it looks like it might not be worth our time because of the price? Or is it more on the lines of experience, and people are willing to pay for a certain type of experience?
Yeah. No, I think what I would say to that, right, is two things. One, most tour operators will expect some discount, right? And so much of that depends on your particular model and how many people show up, but it's not news to you. It's because we're doing the marketing, we're spending to get the people there, and we're trying to bring you business week in and week out, right? So I would expect some sort of group discount to be in play. But we really do want this to be a long-term relationship. We really, really do, right? Because again, as I said at the top of the call, it's repetition that makes all of us better and makes the guest happier. So you should only do it at a price that's fair to you, that actually makes sense for you, right? Because at the end of the day, we want this to be something that you look forward to, that we look forward to, and that our guests look forward to. So yes, there has to be some discount, but we're not doing this to just get the lowest price. We're doing this to get the best long-term relationship. And nothing is too cheap. And I will give you one example. I'm sorry it's not from Wyoming, but there is a lady, I can't remember her name right now, but she is one of the most often mentioned people on our Italian tour that goes to Florence. And we pay her €2 per person. And what do we pay her for? She actually stands outside a bathroom, and I don't know if you've been to Italy, but you have to put coins in a lot of the public bathrooms in order to go in. And when our guests get off a bus, she's there, and she's got this personality and the story, and and our guests love her, right? And I think I may have the numbers wrong, but basically she gives them a euro coin so they can go to the bathroom, and we pay her like €2 a person. And guests love, love, love that because it's authentic, it's on point, et cetera, et cetera. So don't worry about cheapening yourself out from perception. Just don't be so cheap that this is not good business for you, because then there's no point in doing it for either one of us. That always will come to a head.
Thank you.
And yes, Alicia could help. Alicia could help with sort of, they're used to that conversation. Sorry.
Okay.
So you did mention that they would want dine on their own options. How about for the group tours? Do they want to have, like, say in Thermopolis, we could say you could go to the dinosaur museum, you could go to the hot springs. We have the historical museum, and we have a lot of different options. So would we just give them the options to go, or would you want all the group to go one place?
I think the group, whatever you think would be the most intimate individual experience that works with the logistics, is where we end up, right? So again, I could speak at this at length and I won't. When I say a la carte, I know that a full menu at all times of the day, all around the world for 40 people is not a viable option, right? But you want to be more in that realm than, oh, everybody just got off the bus and you have 20 minutes and it's either going to be this chicken or this beef, end of story, right? That's not where people want to be. So as long as people are moving through it and they don't feel like they're being herded or they're being treated as second-class citizens relative to the other people who are eating in your establishment, you'll be fine, if that makes sense, right? So dispersion is fine and a limited menu is fine, but everybody likes independence. Nobody wants to be treated differently or treated worse. If you're in any of those types of areas, that's where it's going to backfire. But at the same time, don't be so helpful that it takes 80 minutes for the meals to come out, right? So this is the balance you got to find.
Jen, do you want to speak to that too? What different options you guys have out and what I've worked with at Little America?
Yes, absolutely. So as far as food and beverage goes, we have our banquet tour menu. So a lot of times they'll let us know, that we want to set a set banquet at a certain time. We have several different menu options. And a lot of times tours will let us know meal choices a few days prior. So we'll send them the limited menu. They'll let us know exactly what they might want to eat for that banquet. However, as far as kind of dine on your own, dinner on their own, we do have a lot of tours that come in. Like Jeremy said, they might want to eat at a certain time or a little bit later in the evening. They might not all want to eat at the exact same time. So we do take reservations, and our front desk is aware. They're ready when folks do come up. We do have all of our envelopes and key packets ready when they get there. So they're not necessarily coming into the lobby right when they arrive, but they'll kind of trickle down after they arrive, get settled, come to the front desk. Then we'll take reservations. They might not want to sit down and eat until 7:30. So, we're happy to accommodate them. We'll make sure we have a table. They can order off our menu when they get there. So we do have several options. I know one of the biggest things is in the morning, a lot of tours do want to leave pretty early. So that's something to be aware of as far as breakfast options go. They might only have a half-hour time where we're going and getting their porterage, putting it into the bus where they have time to eat breakfast. So a lot of times the breakfast buffet is more ideal. And we've just had that experience more or less as far as breakfast goes. And we do have some tour groups that don't leave until a little bit later. So sometimes we'll have a box lunch option available where they might want to just grab box lunches from us. And they'll have them in the bus, and they might eat those a little bit later down the road when they're on the road or on their itinerary going to the next stop. So we have all of those options, just kind of have those conversations when we're booking the piece of business, and then also following up a little bit closer. Because like Jeremy said, a lot of times we're booking tour groups out a year and a half in advance. And, we want to have those conversations 45 days, 30 days prior to arrival as well, just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
And I want to speak a little bit of a couple things that due to COVID, we kind of had to adjust this summer that worked out very well. And I heard it brought up in the last travel conference I was at as well, is be okay thinking outside of the box. So just to give an example, we had a mystery tour that came through Torrington. And there's just not a lot of places that can feed 45 people in Torrington, right? And so what they created was they had a local caterer there that serves Goshen County beef. And it's a ranch family that's been doing ranching there for 100+ years. And then they had a rancher come and talk about what it was like to grow up in that area and a multi-generational ranching and kind of making that connection. And that worked well because this group was out of Kansas, a lot of farmers, but it was just kind of like they connected with that. They got that experience, and it was just super cool because it was different. When we were on our fam trip, again, when we were in DuBois, we ran into some closure. I mean, restaurants were closing and that kind of stuff. So one of the things they did is they hosted a breakfast, and they brought in a speaker that talks about the mountain man. And this guy not only talks about the mountain man, he actually goes out and lives like one. And so, and the mountain men are significant to that region, right? And so there's ways that destinations can start thinking outside of the box to be able to provide those opportunities as well and make it such a unique Wyoming kind of experience. So that's another option to think about in the smaller destinations that don't have a Little America that can provide all of those things. In box lunches, I didn't realize they're kind of a big hit, especially traveling through Wyoming, where you can go for 100 miles without really being able to stop and feed 40 people at a time. So be okay thinking outside of the box. So we are kind of over the time we generally have, but do you guys have any other questions or anything you would like to bring up? I see a lot of faces. It's a lot of information. I encourage you guys to stay in contact with your DMOs. If your DMOs are going to the shows, like if they are going to the trade shows, ask them for leads. Make sure you're connecting with them on the leads that they have, because those are going to be qualified leads for your region specifically, versus like what I'm collecting are going to be more statewide. And I'll send those out to the regional ones that have requested and stuff. But really the big thing is make sure you're staying in contact with your DMOs, make sure you're staying in contact with us. We're really excited for these travel planner magazines to come out. We're excited about our byway box and just where we're taking Motorcoach into the future, continuing to expand it because it's here and they want to be here. So one last shot for questions. Okay. Well, I want to thank Jeremy for taking his time to join with us. He didn't really talk about this, but I got to brag for just a second. Jeremy was actually one of the people responsible for getting the first Motorcoach back into Wyoming post-COVID. So he is very dedicated to our state, and we really appreciate him helping to get Motorcoaches back going in our state last year. So thank you for that. And Jen, we appreciate all you do. I thank you for coming on this call. And you guys are definitely great when it comes to welcoming the group travel industry as well. So if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and call this a day. Thank you guys again for your time. Feel free to reach out for us. This webinar will be posted on our industry webpage. So if you guys want to go back and relook at it, it'll be there as well. So
Thank you. Have a good
thanks,
day.
everyone.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.